Welcome back. So I actually would like us to be able to create a new mesh. So first of all, let's go up to View. I'm going to press Command Option N, create a new folder. So I'm going to say Mesh Configure View. And now let's create a new file. So this will be a Swift UI view. And again, I want to call this Mesh Configure or New Mesh View. And let's get to work. So I would like to pass in a few bindings for the row, column, and mesh name. So I'm going to press Option, drag down 3 lines, at binding, var, and let's press Escape. And now I want to have a row, I want to have a column, and I want to have a mesh name of type string. I also want to have an onDismiss function. So onDismiss will accept no parameters, return void. This is going to be our completion handler. And let's have an environment variable for dismissing. \dismiss private var dismiss. Okay, and the preview is kind of upset. And yeah, we can add a preview or we can drop it altogether. I actually don't want a preview here because we're going to be testing this quite soon. I'm going to drop the preview. Or actually, I don't like the idea of dropping the preview, so we could press Option Command Control F, Control M. Let's select this, Control M, and now say dot constant, say 3, dot constant, let's say 3 again, so 3 by 3 matrix, dot constant, let's call this amazing mesh, that'll be the name. OnDismiss don't really do anything at the moment. And now we can work on the view and actually see the responsiveness. So let's right click on text, create a VStack. I want to set up the alignment to leading, and let's also have some spacing. So the alignment is dot leading, spacing 20, content, we already have content. Instead of hello world, how about create new mesh with a font of that title, and this can be boldface. Next, I want a text field to enter the mesh name. So text field, mesh name, $ mesh name. And let's add some padding. Or actually, let's change the text field style first of all. So text field style, let's say rounded border text field style. I'm going to add some padding at the bottom. Okay, and actually before we proceed to the VStack, let's add some padding and let's give this a frame with width 300. Okay, that's looking a little bit better. Okay, great. Now below the text field, we could create a form, or we could let the whole thing be a form. And let's say content, section, and I want to have a content and a header. So let's say content and header. So the content, let's have an H stack, and let's have a picker. So I want title key selection content. So for the title, let's say rows. selection $sign dot row, and content will be a for each from 2 to 10. The mesh gradients don't really make sense if you don't have at least 2 rows or 2 columns. So I'm going to say the minimum dimensions will be 2. Num in text num, and let's make sure we're using string interpolation, dot tag num. And I need to, since we don't have uniqueness here, let's add id colon backslash dot self. So we have that, and I want to duplicate this picker, but instead of having rows, let's have columns. Again, 2 to 10. Yeah, and that looks decent. And the picker style in both cases, and I want to get rid of the header issue. Okay, and now let's change the picker style. Although it looks all right, let's see, picker style, say dot menu. Yeah, I don't think that's necessary. Okay, and let's set up the header. So for the header, text, we're setting up the dimensions. So let's say dimensions dot bold. Okay, so that's the first part, and we can always change this up. Okay, great. Now I actually would like to see what happens if we grab this and just remove the form and just leave the section. Yeah, I think that looks better. Section without the form. Okay, so we have dimensions. And finally, let's create an H stack with a cancel button. So let's say cancel. And if we cancel, the action should be just to dismiss without saving anything. And we can also have a keyboard shortcut for this if we want. So say keyboard shortcut dot cancel action. And we can have a create button. So let's say create, and the action will be undismiss, which we passed as a parameter, and then dismiss. So the parent is going actually to determine what happens when we dismiss, and we actually want to save the new mesh, create a new mesh. Okay, and we can also set up a keyboard action, a keyboard shortcut over here. So that keyboard shortcut, default action. And I want to disable this button if the mesh name is not a valid identifier. So if it's not valid, and let's go to the H stack and let's maybe add a spacer over here. Let's look at that. And we could add another spacer below this. Okay. That's one possibility of implementing this. Or instead of having spacers, we could just change the frame max width to infinity for both buttons. Maybe that looks a little nicer. Yeah, I think that looks a little bit nicer. Okay, great. Great. Now let's change amazing mesh to amazing mesh $sign, which is an invalid identifier. And you see the create button vanishes. Okay, so that's great. Or if we have an empty string, that's an invalid identifier. Okay. Or if we have, let's try let, right? Oh, let works. Okay. I didn't expect that to work. Okay, wonderful. So in the next lecture, we'll implement the onDismiss from the parent, calling from the parent. Because currently, if we run this, mesh configure view isn't even called from the parent, and definitely onDismiss isn't used. So we're going to use Mesh Configure View in the parent view, in the main view. Great. So have an amazing day, and see you next time.